Without a doubt, the most common frustration of golfers everywhere is the amount of time it takes to play a round of golf. The pace of play, it's an issue. And today, we're addressing it with the experts who have been diving headfirst into the research so that all of us can enjoy this game at a much better pace. Stick around for that conversation straight ahead. There is no doubt that the most frustrating factor in the world of golf that everybody will cite at the top of the survey is pace of play. And the second place gripe isn't even close. It's an 11 shot win for pace of play. And I've also noticed over the years that every golfer thinks every other golfer is the problem. Nobody really has a mirror, apparently, in this realm. And so today I'm super excited to bring on the industry leaders in examining the data regarding pace of play. The company is called Tagmarshal, and the CEO is Bodo Siebler. And Bodo, I've told people we will go to all lengths to connect with experts in this field. This is our first time connecting with somebody who's in South Africa. So I think we get to deem ourselves an international program now. So thank you for helping put that stamp in our passport. How are you?
I'm very well, Bill, and you are very welcome for now having the accolade of being an international gig. There was a high chance that I might be in our Atlanta office, but today I am indeed in sunny Cape Town, South Africa.
You've got a mixture of an accent there. I hear some German, I hear a little South African. So give us the Bodo story before we dig into the data story of Tagmarshal.
Yes, you are have a very good ear. I am indeed German born and raised. Also, my name probably gives that away. But I have spent a considerable amount of time and also my formative university years in South Africa. And if you know a bit of the history of South Africa, there's some influence of Dutch Afrikaans, right, which is a language that is similar to German. So I do think the South African English lends itself to a German speaker. So I've just adopted it. There's also 10 other official languages in this country, but I'm not as fluent in those as I am in English.
Well, we know this, that the language of golf works in every nation, on every continent, all around the world. We all speak the same language, even if it doesn't sound exactly the same. And there are so many layers to this game. How did you kind of head down the path of a pace of play analysis and study for your profession? I mean, that's what Tagmarshal is all about. We'll talk about the company in a moment, but how did you kind of head down that lane?
Yeah, great question. As so often, a lot of innovations happen out of necessity. And you very passionately described the plight of golf is, hey, it takes too long to play. And when I'm out there stuck behind a group or behind multiple groups, that really takes the joy out of my round, right? And probably affects my score. And it's all the reasons why things need to be improved. And that is exactly the genesis moment of Tagmarshal, right? My two business partners were stuck on the 13th hole with two other groups. And they were like, something has to be done. I'm sure we can do this better. Let's think into this, and maybe we can create some sort of technology that can help manage and organize this traffic situation. And yeah, 10 years later, we have now tracked 100 million rounds of golf. And we really have dug deep into the data as to what are the reasons, what can be done. And also, we really have a solution that works, that is in play also at many of your amazing Michigan golf courses.
Yeah, we were shooting a part of our television program at one of those courses over in Marshall called The Medalist, and they were so thrilled with the ways that Tagmarshal has helped facilitate a better pace, better attitudes, more customer involvement, the delivery of food onto the course, and all of these different aspects that make this entire package quite fascinating to me. Let me kind of roll back into an observation. In the world of social media, in golf world social media, there are two very popular kinds of videos that seem to be most frequently viewed. One, would be the people driving carts off of the edges of cliffs, and I'll never understand why that's appealing to anybody. And the other are the brawls that break out on golf courses, most often related to pace of play. Somebody's hitting into somebody else's group, they're all tired of waiting, everybody else is the problem. So, and I don't say this lighthearted. It's a pretty big deal if you're going to be so angry that you literally are willing to commit a crime. So if that's the case and pace of play has moved to that level, I would have to think there is an explosive market out there for tag marshal services where courses around the world are looking at each other and their management staffs and thinking, how do we fix this? This has to get better. And there's more revenue waiting for the golf course on the other end of proper pace of play. I know that's part of the story. So instead of me pretending to be the expert, let me turn it over to the expert. Where do we take this conversation?
Yeah, that's a great observation, right? And I would liken it to road rage. And then
Yes.
there's obviously many reasons, but it's never acceptable. It's never appropriate. At the same time, I think the golf operator has an obligation to control what they can control, right? To create an environment where everyone can have a good time. And sometimes that means we need to remind a few slower groups that they have a responsibility towards the rest of the field. And we have the data that shows that indeed it's only a handful of groups that are actually delaying a day, but the impact they might have is far reaching, right? You might have a day out that's busy at the medalist with 200 golfers, and two or three groups might delay 100 players, right? And 100 players rounds now take 40 minutes longer. But the 40 minutes that is part of the problem. The waiting is the main problem, right? The
Yeah.
flow, there's a difference between pace of play and flow of play, right? Pace of play is how long did my round take versus the expected round time. But flow of play is how often did I have to wait? And that is very often what golfers have very strong emotional responses to, right? Yeah, I'd love to throw it back to you where you would like to start with the probing and questioning. I have lots of data also to fall
Yeah.
back on. That's what you go to. That's what you do, right?
Yes, and you're so right that a 4 hour and 45-minute round or a 5 hour round can feel enjoyable if you have been active throughout that time. At the same time, a 4 hour and 15-minute round can feel miserable and infuriating because you know you could have played it in three and a half, but because of those. So the flow is so important. You guys have collected over 1 billion data points from all of this universe of frustration and pace of play. What do data points look like? Are you measuring, tee time intervals? Are you looking at how long it takes a group to go from their carts to the green? I don't know what data points you're looking at and how we can take that information and turn it into a solution.
Yeah, a great question. So our solution, you can think of it as a Waze or Google Maps of on-course traffic management, right? So much like you're relying on Google Maps to tell you how do I get to from A to B in the most effective manner, and it gives you a current or real-time traffic indication and maybe some alternative routes that you might take. That is what we give to the operator, but obviously to them, the individual view that you have as a driver out on the road is not as interesting as a holistic view. What is happening on my course right now with all the 30 groups out there, right? So they want to understand where's the biggest problem, where's the biggest choke situation right now, which groups are falling out of position so that we can engage with them, interact with them, and ensure that they compliant and they're getting back in position. And some of the data points that you're referring to are simply geolocation data points as the groups and a foursome might progress across the course. And then we measure how much time do they spend on and around the tee box, how much time do they spend in the fairway. And if it's a par five, there's various zones in the fairway. If it's a shorter hole, it might only be one zone. How much time do they spend on the green? And then we look at where are they supposed to be according to their goal time, right? As they're progressing, say they teed off at 8, at say 9 minutes and 9 o'clock and 10 minutes, they're supposed to be on this hole in that position. And are they out of position? Yes or no? But more importantly, what is the gap time to the group ahead of them, right? So we're trying to understand those items, and then we're looking at things like, is that trend getting worse? Like, are they out of position and they're getting worse? Are they now, last hole they were 3 minutes out, now they're 10 minutes out? Okay, this is a problem in the making, right? Or have they started to recover? Also, where on the course are they right now that the problem is commencing? Are they on hole number 3? Well, if they're 10 minutes out of position, hole number 3, that is an accident that is really hard to recover. If they're 10 minutes out of position and they've gotten bad in the last 2 holes on hole number 18, well, they can't do that much more damage, right? So we're looking at all of these data points, and we've developed an algorithm that really runs and analyzes this and then serves it to the operator in a live map view that is really like you would look at your Google Maps or Waze, and tells you, these are the groups that are the issue. These are the groups that are held up by these delayer groups. And here are the groups that are going nicely right now. So as an operator, you need to think back to a time when you didn't have Google Maps or Waze, right? When you had a paper map and you listened to the traffic radio on the hour, you would never want to go back there, right? I mean, that is just, you're guessing, how long is it going to take me? And you're going on gut feel based on, yeah, normally there's a bit of traffic and right now there's roadworks, I'm going to go around. But having that live information from Google Maps obviously is a game changer.
Yeah.
So it's the same at a golf course, where yesterday, in the past, they used to work with lots of human resources out there, marshals, trying to figure out, are these groups on pace or not? Are there gaps widening? Are there gaps closing? When did they start? Well, I'm not sure. Is that the 8:10 tee time or is it the 8:20 tee time, right? Lots of radio chatter, lots of effort. So we are automating a lot of this and making it very intuitive so that everyone on the golf management team, and that might be the assistants, that might be the manager, that might be the starter, that might be a course assistants out on the golf course, they all have this live data, much like you're looking at your Google Maps, and they know what's happening on the golf course. So going back to the data in the city traffic environment, if Google wanted to manage any city's traffic systems and plug into their traffic lights and so on, they could really optimize that, right? Because they have all the data from multiple years of traffic tracking. There evidently is no money in that. But
Right.
on a golf course, well, the golf course owner, it is their property. They can make the rules, right? So we can give them that underlying data. Here are your holes that are a problem. And if you run these setups, this pin placement with this weather and this play volume, that is going to cause an issue. So we recommend doing it this way versus that way. We're telling you, here's your hole by hole run time, here's your T-box sway time. This is what happens at this time of day, right? Versus play volume versus expected climatic conditions. So we're really analyzing this and preemptively giving them the toolkit that they need to make better decisions, right? So that they can really control what happens out on a golf course, and it's no longer responsive. And after the fact, because once you have a 20, 30-minute delay on a golf course that involves 40 or 50 players, you cannot get that time back. It's impossible to untangle.
Yeah.
You need to get ahead of it as it happens, and then you need to know, what can I do better tomorrow, right? And that is where data is an absolute game changer.
And it's hard to recover the goodwill of a customer who has experienced that frustration. You might buy them a burger, you might give them a gift certificate to come back again, but they're still going to tell their friends what a rough experience it was. And I'm reminded, Bodo, there weren't very many good things that came out of the pandemic, but one of them was an overwhelming demand for tee times. People are still playing golf at an amazing level. And it also brought back, or for the first time ever, new people into the game. And in many cases, people who don't have any education in etiquette, in pace of play, they have no idea what ready golf means. And so we have this good news, bad news situation. We have a lot of people loving this great game. And then we have people who don't know quite how to comport themselves as they play. And causes that whole backup situation that you're talking about. I think the phrase that I hear most often from course operators is the head of the snake. They'll say, we need to go find the head of the snake, which means, for those of you who aren't sure, which means like if you have two open holes past a group and then everybody behind them is backed up, they're the head of the snake. And so that's where your player assistant, your ranger, needs to go out and have some sort of a protocol that's in place. They don't have to go out and scream at them. They don't have to taser anybody. They don't have to pepper spray anybody, but they need to have a conversation. And that conversation would be, there are others around you. You're a hole behind or you're two holes behind. We've got to get you moving. I'd like you to pick up your balls and move ahead two hole or whatever the solution may be. My guess would be that in the world of Tagmarshal, the goal is, as you kind of talked to a moment ago, you'd like to avoid those moments before they ever happen because it's uncomfortable for everybody involved. What has your data shown you is the most common cause for something like that? Is it lack of knowledge on the part of a golfer? Is it horrendous golf played slowly, or is it kind of a combination?
Yeah, it's very often players unaware, right? And and sometimes it might be a case of they're having too much of a good time, they're having too much of a chat, or they're taking too long finding a ball that's evidently lost, right? So it's very
Yeah.
often a compounding effect, because if that happens 2 or 3 times and you take 2 or 3 minutes extra to try and find your ball, well, you're now 9 minutes behind where you're supposed to be. And that is almost a gap time, right? And an interval time between two groups.
Mm.
So it happens very quickly. And we need to, obviously, as players, ideally play ready golf and have some level of mindfulness around this. So what we're finding very often, it's, players are just not aware. And sometimes it's a single player in a foursome, right? That might actually be the cause. And
I'm picturing somebody right now in my head. I've got him locked in. I won't say his name, but you are correct. And if the ball retriever comes out of the bag, we're going to have words, right? I'm like, I'll give you golf balls. Stop,
yes,
stop.
yes.
You don't want them out of the pond anyway. So yes, I have that player in my mind. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
There you go. So, as from the player's perspective, right? Play ready golf from the player's perspective. Keep up with the group in front of you, right? Then you're doing your job. From the operator's perspective, it's very often a case of they want to stay ahead of the problem, right? Like you're saying, we need to find the head of the snake. The moment that there's a visible gap in the field of two holes open, that is already 15, 18 minutes
Yeah.
that we've lost, right? And then what you get behind that is almost like a concertina effect, where the group's starting to back into this group. Now, eventually, you're getting this group to move again. Now, it has an impact on 2, 3 groups behind. And it's almost like you can go out on the highway right now, and if you slow down your vehicle, you can cause a traffic jam at will, right? And a lot of vehicles behind you are then going to be impacted, and it takes quite a long time to untangle. So that is where the system and its real-time information that's visualizes, here's the issue. That's it. It's like right now, here's an alert. Instead of having eyeballs out there, we're telling you, and also we're telling the players directly, right? So that they know and that they can stay compliant. And it's really amazing what happens, because players don't want to be slow, right? They don't also want to be called slow, right? So
That's
there's two things that we've learned is that for the operator to get through to the player, a lot comes down to the delivery, right? And you said it quite nicely. We need to convey the message in a way that can land with the players. If we're saying to the players, shout at them, taser them, hey guys, you're slow, get on with it, that does not find a good reception. Normally the players will defend themselves and say, hey, where were you 10 minutes ago when we waited on the group ahead of us? Well, I'm paying good money to play here. Get out of my face, right? And it's confrontational. So this is where you're finding data completely changes that interaction, but also how do you deliver the message? And very often our operators have learned, and they're teaching their team to say, hey, how's your round going? I noticed you're a bit out of position.
Hmm.
So that means right now you're out of position by half a hole. Help me get back in position. Let's catch up, get back in position. I've never once said the word slow. Players understand, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm half a hole out of position. Let me catch up. easy conversation to have. Um, but yeah, like I said, the key is the preemptive nature of it, and also just understanding the broader data points and the broader data landscape. And it's got lots of inputs and variables. And one of the really, really key ones, and that is why your local golf course always says, please be on time for your tee time, right?
Yeah.
Is teeing off at the right time. Because think about it, if you have a 10-minute interval on a golf course, and there's a tee time at 8 and there's one at 10 past 8. Now the 8 o'clock tee time, the guys are a bit late. They hit a few too many balls on the range. Now they're starting at 8 or 3. The next group is eager to go. They're there a bit early, and now the starter says, oh, you guys are ready to go. Let's send you out. He might then send them out at 8 or 9. So now we only have a 5-minute gap. That's not going to map out, right? So we really, that is where it starts. We have to make sure that our tee time intervals are adhered to. And the better operators really put a lot of effort in that and making sure that their starters are empowered to do that well from the get-go. The other thing that we've learned is the biggest damage control needs to happen in the first 5 holes, right? So we need to have eyes on in the first 5 holes so that we can ensure a group that is starting to fall out of position, we catch them then. On the back nine, it's too late, right? And what's amazing, and I'll give you an example from a Fieldstone Golf Club in Auburn Hills.
Yep.
Really busy operation. And they have gone through COVID and that post-COVID boom that you mentioned with many days of 5-hour rounds and close to 5-hour rounds that they weren't happy with. They weren't happy with the delivery. Now, in comes the advent of dynamic pricing, right? Because for those 8 o'clock tee times, those on the hour tee times, those early tee times, there's higher demand. So they realized, yeah, we can charge a bit more for these premium rounds, but then we need to deliver an amazing experience every time, right? Because if somebody pays $90 for a $60 round, they have higher expectations. So they install Tagmarshal and some 2 things for them. One, every round is controlled, like every day is controlled, and they're really on top of what they're delivering, right? So there's no days that go into that 4-hour, 45-hour range. Everything's controlled. So what does it mean? The players are happy. The players tell their friends. The players come back again next week and say, this was a great round. I had a great time. I played in 4 hours, 5 minutes, whatever, right? Right in line with expectations. And often they go to the pro shop and say, how did you guys do it? It was so busy. Yet I'm out of here in 4 hours. It's magic. Right. And it's like, well, we've got a solution that helps us do that. Now, the other thing that they did is they realized that really understanding the data, you can actually play Fieldstone. And I'm giving you an example time here in 3 hours,